So I've been doing quite a lot of bass fishing lately, and I thought I'd share a pattern with you that's been really successful, designed to imitate a baitfish. I tie this in two colours, basically one to imitate a sand eel and the other to imitate a baby mullet. And I'm going to tie the baby mullet version today. First things first, I want to talk about the hook that I'm using, which is slightly unusual for this kind of thing. It's actually designed as a carp hook. So this is from a company called Palatrax. It's called a grips. So it's neither barbless nor barbed. It's got little tiny grooves. If you just see that sort of illustration on the back of the packet, you can probably see the point there has got little notches in it. It means that you get great hookup, but also what I've found with them is that it's very easy to take the hooks out. And obviously one of the things that you find, or certainly I find with my wobbly casting on windy days on the beach, if you get clattered in the back of the head by a barbed hook, you're in deep trouble, and it hurts quite a lot. But at least one of the elements of this is that, you know, they're easy to deal with. Also easy, really easy to deal with in your landing net when you've got a big fish in there and, you know, maybe the fish throws the hook out into the net or something like that, or when you're in the process of kind of trying to remove the hook from a fish and get it back into the water quickly. These hooks come out nice and easily and also don't get stuck in your net. So really, really important for me to use these hooks, I think. Okay, let's talk about just the basic sort of parameters of this. I'm using a plane. This is a Textreme 8/0 black tying thread. Just need to tighten my vise up a wee bit. And I'm just going to put on a bed of tying thread first of all. I found tying these baitfish patterns does take a little bit of time, and it's taken, I won't say I've mastered it because I certainly haven't, and there are a lot of others out there who tie these a lot better than I do, but with a bit of practice you can actually get to the stage of being reasonably proficient and certainly catching fish. So that's, you know, the stage I've got to now. These patterns do really work very well. I've just laid on a little bed of thread, not too much, and if you sort of use the point of the hook as your measure, if you like, you can probably see from the hook in the vise also that this is slightly in-turned, and I think that that's another reason that these hooks are really effective on this particular pattern. Razor sharp, and they just kind of that little in-turn point I think helps when you sort of get a take from a bass. They stick really well. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a little bit of tailing fibre, and I'm just using bucktail here. So this is a white bucktail, and I'm going to take from the back of the bucktail, I'm just going to pull out a little pinch, not too much, just kind of that much fibre. In fact, I might even take a bit less than that. Just trim off the fibres and just measure. Now I'm just going to sort of even the ends up a little bit just to make sure that this goes in properly. The reason the bucktail's going in there is essentially not for anything other than supporting the rest of the materials. So I'm just going to lay that on top, catch in with my tying thread a few turns, and I'm going to trim off the butt ends of the bucktail like so, and just kind of make sure everything's attached down nice and securely to the top of the hook. Again, you'll see I'm parking my tying thread almost level with the point of that hook, so you can just see there's a little wisp of that to kind of keep things in neat and tidy shape. Okay, so the next thing I'm going in with is a bit of this stuff. This is a fish sort of flash type fibre. There are lots of these around there. This one is called Crafty Pro Flash from Crafty Fly. I actually won this as a prize, would you believe, for catching mullet and bass, which is rather nice, but it's lovely stuff, and I've got several different colours of it. The one I'm using, in fact I'm going to be using two in this. This is the sort of pearl fibre. Look at that, isn't that fantastic stuff? Really gorgeous looking material, and you really don't need very much of it. That's the other thing. So I'm just going to kind of lever out a few strands like so and lay this down on my tying bench so it sort of hangs over the edge so I can trim off the end bits. And all I'm going to do is just clip off, I'll show you in a second, a little pinch of fibres. Now what I found with this is basically measure out how much you think you need and then halve it. Because the problem with these baitfish patterns is it's very easy to go too bulky and then they stop doing the job that you want them to do. Now that, I would say, is about the right amount, but what I'm going to do is halve it, because I'm going to put a bit in later on, up towards the head of the fly. And this is just about building up layers of fibre. So just going to taper the ends by just pulling it slightly so they're all slightly uneven. That's a wee bit long. It should be okay. Just lay that on top like so. And just catch it in on top of the fly. It's kind of a 50-50. Sorry about the plane going above. Not much I can do about that. Listen to the bird song outside instead, if you can probably hear that too. Right, so I've caught that in. Just fold that top bit back over the top again and fasten it down. And you can see already that it's kind of got that flowing feel about it, and that sort of iridescence, which I think, if you look at fish scales, of course, you also get that in the natural creature. I think I'm actually just going to trim off the end of that just a little bit. So I'm going to put my scissors flat rather than cutting straight down, and just sort of taper it along a little bit like so. So there's a little bit more control. Okay. So the next thing that is going in is, where's it gone? This stuff. So this, because I'm tying a mullet pattern, is a big fish fibre. It's called big fish fibre. This is from Silver Scales Fly Fishing. This is from Chris Silverthorne. Really great material. Don't need very much of it. I've just already cut off this little amount here. That will probably do me for the entire pattern. Okay, I might need one little bit more. What I'm just going to do there is I'm going to fold that over in a little loop and just cut it in half, so it's about, I don't know, 4 inches long maybe, like so. Just put that to one side to use it later. Again, I'm just going to taper that material a little bit, lay it on top, catch it in and fold the back bit over. Sparse is what we're looking for at the tail. I don't want this to be bulky at the back. Okay, it just wants to be a kind of suggestion of tail movement. Okay, just a couple more turns of thread just to secure that down. Now I'm going to rotate my vise over and lock it, and I'm going to go onto the bottom of the fly with some of the same fibre, except this time it's white, not grey. Again, I'm just going to take off a little wisp of this stuff. Fold it over in a loop again, like so. Do not overuse it. This is the sort of material that adds bulk very, very quickly. It's what it's designed for. It's great for big pike flies, but for stuff like this, you really only need a suggestion of it. Okay, just taper it a little bit, push it past the hook so it kind of goes past halfway. And I'm just using my right hand to just stroke those fibres back so they sit nicely around the back of the hook. Again, a couple of turns of thread. Rotate the vise back round again, and then I'm going to fold that. In fact, I'll split it, that'll make it slightly easier. And just again push it past the point of the hook. The fibres will sort of behave themselves if you keep stroking them back, like so. Stray one there. Once you've got it under control, it's actually not too bad to tie with at all. But you can already see there's a sort of suggestion of kind of a baitfish profile starting to happen. I'm just going to trim those two off because I don't like them. Okay. Right, and then it's just a process of kind of gradually building the fly up. So I've also got the where's it gone? The Pro Flash in this colour, which is a really lovely kind of shiny black. So I'm going to put a couple of strands of that in now across the back of this baitfish, just to sort of make it appear mullety. not too much of it again. I don't want to get this to be too bulky. I'm just going to move my thread down to about halfway. Drop it in over the top. Again, I've tapered that so it's all different lengths of material, so it's not one sort of harsh cut-off point. Fold it back again and just secure it all down. And you've got a very clear black and white idea here with the sort of iridescence of that other colour flash, this one, going through the middle. It looks like the sort of the lateral line of the fish. Okay, a little bit more of the big fish fibre rather. So lay that on top, a couple of turns, fold that one back. That was about 60-40, so 60% of it going that way, 40% going that way. Just make sure it's all sitting nicely on top before I secure it all down. Roll the vise over again. Same part of the process. I'm just going to grab the white one. There's the bit that I cut earlier on. In fact, that's the grey one, isn't it? No, that's the white one, that's right. Just want a little bit less of that one, I think. You've just got to judge this, really. Just remember, it's not about bulk. What you're trying to do is imitate something that's small and immature sort of fish, is what the bass are eating. So you don't want to go big and bulky. If you're after, you know, tying big and bulky flies for them, then knock yourselves out and go for the bigger fish. But that's not what, certainly at the moment, around where I'm fishing, not what the fish seem to be eating. I'm sure it will change as things start to warm up a bit more and more stuff comes along. They start to, their metabolisms go up and they start to go in search of much bigger food. Okay, I'm really happy now with the back of that. Just wet the back and sort of see how that's sitting. That's sitting for me quite nicely. Just going to move my vise over a little bit because this is getting a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to put in now just another little line of the iridescent pearl coloured flash, and that just sort of goes down the side of the baitfish pattern to make it look a little bit more, I suppose, natural in the water and just catch the eye of those predatory feeding fish. Again, just a few fibres like so. Taper the length down a little bit, lay it on top, check my measure, a little bit longer on the back than the front, secure down, fold back like so. Whoops. Okay, so everything so far I've tied in has been facing the back of the hook. What I'm going to do now is tie in just a little bit of more material, so a grey on the top and a white on the bottom facing in the other direction. So just going to have to clip off a tiny bit more, and by tiny I mean tiny. I mean that's probably too much. I want about half of that. So that's the big fish fibre again, the grey stuff. Naiad works really well for this, by the way, as well. Sort of a naiad, or even some of the artificial naiad, the grey stuff that you can get. Really nice movement in the water. Okay, so what I've got here is a piece of material that's the entire length of the fly, or just a little bit longer, so I've got kind of a tag end. Now, as I say, I've reversed it, so I'm going to tie that in on top, like so. A couple of turns just to secure it in. I'm not going to fold it back yet. Okay. Then I'm going to reverse the vise again, and I'm going to grab some of the white version, this one, similar amount, about the same length, a little bit shorter, so about sort of 4 to 5 inches again of fibre. Tighten that way again, so it sits up like that. So you've got black on the top, white on the bottom, because it's a mullet. Okay, just secure those down. Now what I'm going to do is fold both of these bits back over the top of the fly. So there's the top, and then push back the bottom as well so it splits around the thread a wee bit. And again, just stroke it back with your other hand. So it all spreads around the hook nicely, and then secure it down with a little dam of thread. Hope you can see the sort of the profile of that is starting to be exactly what I wanted. Nice little thread dam there that imitates the lip of the mullet and a whip finish. Normally obviously the whip finish is the end of the tie, but we're not quite there yet, because what I want to do is put some resin on the thread and a couple of eyes to make it look fishy. Okay, so I'm using a Gulf resin. That's the first job, is to resin the, oops, forgot to unlock my device and I've moved it. Still in business. Just a little run of resin around that, and use my dubbing needle to just spread that around so it's nice and even before I cure it with my torch. About 15 seconds should do. Right, next part is the fiddly bit, where I'm going to use some little self-adhesive eyes to create the eyes on this baitfish pattern. These are just a little sort of self-adhesive 3D thingies. You can buy them all over the place actually. I think I bought this lot off of eBay or somewhere. Okay, size wise I don't think it matters an awful lot, to be honest. You know, and I'm pretty sure actually, in fairness, the eyes are more there for us than they are for the fish. I think the fish eat this anyway, whether it's got eyes on it or not. But I'm going to use reasonably small ones just to, you know, just to do the job. I'm going to use a red eye. So first I'm going to just prepare the ground, as it were. So I'm just going to use my dubbing needle to pick up one of the eyes off the self-adhesive sheet, because it gets ever so fiddly otherwise. Just sort of perch it on the end like so. I don't know if you can just about see that, hopefully. And I'm using resin to put the eyes on, not glue. I don't like using super glue, it gets all over the place. I end up with my fingers stuck together and epoxy eyes stuck to bits of my body. So I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is use resin, which is neat and tidy. Okay, so I've locked my vise in a horizontal position, and I'm using the hook point as my reference for a blob of resin. So if I put my blob kind of level with where the hook point is at the halfway point of the fly, just pull up so you leave a little bit behind like so. Pick up my eye, and I'm using my fingers, resting them against bits of the vise where I can get a bit of purchase, to just kind of almost tripod myself so everything's steady. Just use the end of my dubbing needle to push that in securely. And I'll cure that one first. You'll notice I'm pulling the fibres away from the head with my other hand, just to keep everything tight, and the sort of resin process helps to keep this quite of a slim profile, if you like. Okay, so that's the first one nearly done. Then repeat the process. So I'm just going to pop the eye on my dubbing needle, ready to go on the other side. Rotate my vise around the other way, again using the hook point as my measure. Probably can't see this all this clearly from the camera angle, but I'm just doing exactly the same as I did before, really. So using the hook point as my measure, blob of resin goes on. Here goes my eye onto the top again, sort of halfway between the black and white. Pull it back a little bit, get the torch in there and cure it off. About 15 seconds should do nicely. I'll just turn it around so you can see though. And there we have him. So that's the basic sort of bait fish profile. I suppose that's what, four or so inches long, but the thing I really like about this is past about there, so in that direction it's very wispy, there's almost nothing of it. Just let me show you what it looks like in olive as a sand eel. So that was the mullet version. Here is the olive, that's the sand eel version. Both devastating. In that one, the only thing I've done slightly differently to that previous pattern is when I tie in the fibre at the end, the first thing I tie in above the bucktail is just a little folded over bit of red tinsel, which you can probably just see poking out the back there. The reason for that is very simple. I think predators like bass target in on red, and often they might be following this fly from the rear, so when it goes through the water and pulses, it displays just that little bit of red tinsel out the back, which in my head, and it is only in my head obviously, makes it more likely for the fish to grab the fly, and then I hook up. Okay, there you go then. Two flavours, mullet flavour and sand eel flavour. Hope you've enjoyed the tie. Just be patient. Remember, less is more with these bait fish patterns. Don't go too heavy-handed. You know, select a pinch of material and then halve it, and just kind of try and gradually build up the fly as you go through. And yeah, enjoy your time. Hope you catch a few fish. Thanks ever so much for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button down at the bottom for more fly tying videos from me. Cheers.